You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts with the only Chris Level. I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you for this Locked On Texas Tech special edition. Big 12 Weekly, a glance at what's going on around the conference. And by that, I mean between the confines of Lubbock, Texas and Fort Worth. Essentially a theme on today's show. We're cooking online beef. Cook it up, baby. As you may have seen by now, and if you don't live on the internet, good for you. We all wish we had lives, but some of us don't. So we were on Twitter yesterday, perusing the Twitter streets and seeing a shot fired from Texas Tech Athletics Director Kirby Hut toward the aforementioned Fort Worth, Texas, home of the Horned Frogs of Texas Christian. And it was essentially targeting the Texas Christian Athletics Director and their approach to ticket sales, but it was based on, I guess, a tweet with regard to NIL compensation or like a base minimum as far as revenue sharing is concerned. I guess I shouldn't say NIL. I don't know. I was generally confused. Of course, it also did come through circa happy hour on Friday afternoon, so that might have added to the confusion as well, as I was very thirsty and in the midst of wetting my whistle. So I'm going to try and process here with you today, Chris, what this meant and what this was all about. If you have not seen it, I'm going to throw a pair of tweets up on the screen so you can take a look at what we are referencing. So there was a report from Ross Dellinger. It was a tweet that said, Texas Christian is the latest school to announce that it will participate in the maximum level of athlete revenue sharing per a letter from Athletics Director Jeremiah Donati. Kirby Hut quote tweets this, as you see on the screen. If you're listening via podcast, I'll tell you what it says. And Hut says, Red Raider Nation, at Texas Tech, our season tickets are sold out. Single game tickets for all 7 home games are going at a record pace. Then he says, hey, Donati TCU, tagging the athletics director from Texas Christian. We can fill your stadium too if you'll let us. Congrats on following us on revenue sharing at the highest level too. And then Kirby includes a graphic from Texas Christian's ticket selling website that says, our family of season ticket holders, Investors Society, Frog Club members, and Texas Christian parents were able to take advantage of last week's special advance sale of single game tickets for the upcoming football season. Beginning Monday, the general public was provided the same opportunity with the exception of the October 26th homecoming contest versus Texas Tech, which will be offered in a ticket package at a later date. All that to suggest, obviously, that the Horned Frogs are trying to keep Red Raider fans from buying all those single game tickets up for that matchup between the Frogs and the Red Raiders. So Hokut's including a couple of different bullets there in his tweet on a couple of different topics, but some of it based on the ticket sale scheme. Donati responds with this: plenty of good bars and restaurants around Fort Worth for them to watch. The stadium will be purple. Chris, when I saw this, I'm having to check to make sure this is a real account. I didn't know if this is like a Kirby Hut parody account, because it sort of seemed like out of the norm, I guess, for Kirby Hut. But I don't know. Maybe it really got to him, and he wanted to fire a couple of shots off on a Friday afternoon. So what was your reaction? Because there was certainly some reaction from fans, both red and purple alike.
Yeah, there were there are layers to this. If you look at there's a few cactus emojis involved here, which if we go back a few years, that was a whole thing when a previous recruiting coordinator kind of commented about Texas Tech being, the desert and all that. And then, Tech fans show up and put a whole bunch of, baby cactuses in front of his office because the office was just wide open there at the TCU football facility. And there was all the, I'm like, there's Tech fans that literally went and bought a bunch of these baby cactuses and just like started trying to open doors and just unattended put them all in front of the gentleman that made the comments about Tech. So there's all, and it got everybody putting the cactus emoji in their their Twitter handle, and Joey still has it. It's just kind of a common thing, but that's what it all stems from. You had a couple of years ago, which is when this we're going to freeze you out kind of process started with the football game there. They've done it in basketball. I think TCU just got tired of having their arena or stadium just half red and all that. So they've definitely adjusted their tickets to where it does. It makes you have to buy – you almost have to buy a season ticket to TCU football or TCU basketball just to get tickets to the Tech game, which is the way that they want it. And I think that they'd rather honestly have empty seats than they would have Tech fans in there. And that's their prerogative. It's their home game and all those things. But I think what set this latest round off was Kirby's retweeting Ross Dellinger. There was a couple of other reporters. I know Dennis Dodds was one. There was another more regional reporter that and maybe it was the reporter's fault. I don't know, but it seemed to trigger some folks, and it appears that the Tech folks included, where it was stated TCU, the first school to say they're all in on the revenue sharing. They will share the maximum amount allowed, and like we're leading the way. And there was a lot of this this was yesterday afternoon, and I kind of thought to myself, one, I don't think that's right. And two, of course, everybody's going to share maximum level. Like is anybody going to raise their hand in one of these Power 4 leagues and go, well, we're going to not go all in here. We're going to not be that way. Or you're just cutting your nose off to spite your face. I mean, I just don't. So I didn't really, it didn't move the needle to me that this was even being reported. But I think that it took some headlines or it took some eyeballs, and it made it look like that the TCU athletic director was kind of puffing out his chest, and maybe it's not his fault. Maybe it was the reporter's fault, something lost in translation, but that's where this started. Okay. That's what set everybody off. And I don't know if he got hit from other sides too. We're just going to talk about the Tech angle here, but the Tech folks had said this back in like March or April. You know, I mean, like if there's revenue to be shared, we will do what we are asked to do to the fullest capacity, and we are glad to do it. The end. I mean, how often had you and I, Cowan, talked about the way they may have to structure their roster, who would actually get the revenue? We knew it was all going to be shared, but who was going to get it? And we've even you and I have talked about how do you allocate? You know, is it all going to be football and basketball? The women's sport's going to get it. How do you pay the quarterback versus the left tackle versus the backup deep snapper versus all those things? Those are conversations we've had for the last 2 to 3 months. So I felt like we were way down the road on that. But I think it just triggered some folks. And look, does Kirby call Jeremiah Donati and be like, hey, man, I'm going to stir it up. Just play along. Or does this just like I'm sitting at home and like, this dude, how dare they try to, parade themselves around like they were the first or this was their idea to share all the revenue. So, again, in the wrestling business, you always have to know if it's a work, which means it's like, okay, it's contrived or if it's real, right? And it the lines get blurred a lot of times, which is why so many people entertained, okay, and watch it on a Friday night or a Monday night or a pay-per-view on a Saturday or Sunday, whatever, because you're like, man, I think that's real. I think that was, or no, dude, it's a total work, So was this contrived? Was this manufactured? Was it legitimate? I'll be the first to say, I really don't care, because I think that the Big 12 needs more of this kind of stuff, not less. Be petty. Don't be so collegial. Take some shots. Let's get people fired up and interested. You talk about it all the time, man, about you want more people on your schedule that you want to hate and root against, not less of those. You want more of those. Yeah. And if we can get some stuff going here, and this, again, there's some layers to this here. This stems from a couple of 3 years ago. And I do remember 2 years ago, it was the year that TCU went to the CFP. And remember, the football team, we sat on the runway here for, I think, 8 to 9 hours, it was just a ridiculous day. in Lubbock, Texas. It was the stupidest thing I've ever been a part of. But I remember after that game, and you played your tail off in that game. 11 a.m., you're totally off your routine. And after that game was over, which is typical, they fired off a bunch of videos. They were making fun of Joey and making fun of everything. And the athletic director and Sonny Dykes were all involved with it and all those things. And again, when you win, you can say what you want. I get it. That's the way it works. But there's some, I don't know. There's some juice here. But I'm like you, dude. I'm like, is this real? Like, what is going on here? I texted somebody that would know. I'm like, this caught me way off guard. And they go, I love it. He's pissed because of the, kind of what we just talked about. And I'm like, okay. So but is it manufactured? Is it real? I don't know. Again, I'll say it again. I don't care. Anytime we can incorporate professional wrestling terms into what we're doing in college athletics, I'm here for it, because it is entertainment after all. It's sports after all. And we're all here to be entertained, and it's spiced up a Friday night.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering how you would feel, or how anyone in the audience would feel, and certainly invite you to let us know there in the YouTube comments if it changed how you felt about it, if it was contrived. First, today's episode brought to you by eBay Motors. And eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and keep that ride or die ride on the road, or elevate your car's game to the next level of performance. Superchargers, exhaust kits, LED headlights, roof racks, and accessories of all kinds to fit your style. Whether it's power, speed, or design you're into, eBay Motors has you covered with over 122 million parts to perfectly fit what you need. Just head over to ebay.com/motors now, where you'll always find exactly what you're looking for, and at no risk because of eBay's guaranteed fit. Your part is guaranteed to fit just right every time, or your money back, keeping you burning rubber and not burning cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to keep your ride or die on the road and moving your life forward at ebay.com/motors. eBay guaranteed fit, only available to U.S. customers, eligible items only, exclusions do apply. It's if it changed how you felt about it, if it was contrived, or if it was organic. Is it cringe or is it cooking? And I got to say, I'm hoping it's entirely organic, because the one thing that you had previously and that has made so many college beefs so great is an organic hate. And I know when you're talking about, Baylor or Texas Christian, who I'm happy to hate, we're trying to drum something up on their side because they've got, a group of folks that care about those programs that can fit inside of a modest-sized RV. So we've really got to try and pump it up and work it up a little bit more as far as those sides go. So maybe that's what they're doing. I don't know. It just caught me off guard as well, because I'm thinking typically I haven't really seen, and maybe he's trying to lean into it, but I haven't really seen this type of stuff from Hoka, whether it was contrived or organic. Previously there may have been some things that I'm forgetting or I'm missing. He is a former football player. I know that he's passionate about what goes on with his athletics department and with his football team. And I know that, sometimes when you've heard him speak in a press conference setting or in a media breakout setting, there's been some of that very organic passion that will come through. But it's just really interesting to see this fired off on Twitter. So would love to hear from those in the audience as to how you are feeling about this. And I don't know, we do battle for leather. There is a saddle on the line between Texas Tech and Texas Christian, which I hope at least, efforts will be made to continue to have that game played year in and year out, even if it has to be done outside of a conference setting. I don't know if there are agreeable parties to that. Obviously, the Big 12 is not interested in protecting the series. But is Texas Christian your best chance at, right now at least, working up something with some juice? I really don't know who else would really even be on the list. And sometimes something organic will happen. Like we try to shove a field goal post into the visitors section, and then all of a sudden you got Arizona Wildcats punching one another and then saying it was like the Alamo. And then things begin to generate in that kind of way. But I don't know. You think it's the Frogs that maybe is the best chance to generate a little heat as far as the series goes? Somebody else on your mind?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's already some things there. I mean, this goes back to Gary Patterson. I mean, remember the 70-point game when you beat them 70-21, and then you had the game in Fort Worth where Gary Patterson basically shut. It was an 06 when it was just like the total opposite, when you just couldn't get anything going. And yeah, there's been some juice here for years and years prior to when you were in the same league together. And look, was this contrived? Was it real? At some level, it has to be, real. But the reason I even mentioned that was it manufactured. That all these ads know each other. They work together. I think the term collegial gets thrown around. I mean, but I think they'd probably be really smart to do more of this, not less, because you need to generate interest in some ways. You need to get people, give them a reason to care. That's what, and that's why I'm here for this. I mean, just because I can only go to the wrestling analogy, because that they used to say that, like back in the 80s when they interview a wrestler, and he's talking to the camera and he's talking about how he's going to destroy the opponent and all these things. You had to talk people into the building. You had to give them a reason to pay their hard-earned money on a Friday night. And not that you're necessarily needing to do that here, but there's a level of where I think that analogy is appropriate. And I think you're giving some reasons for there to be more of a care factor than maybe previously. The cactus, the taking the friendly jab, the jab back, the frog tea sipping emoji. I mean, all the back and forth. I mean, I'm here for it. I don't know. I was not expecting it. I'm like, is what am I seeing here? And then it just kept going. It just kept going, and I loved it. I mean, because every Tech fan should love the fact that Kirby Hut is fighting for them, and TCU is going to elicit more emotion than most from other schools in the Big 12, and it's simply because there's some past history, but two, they are located right where most of your alumni is, and that's why TCU is trying to freeze everybody out, because that's where the largest alumni base is, in that Dallas-Fort Worth area.
Do you blame them for doing that? I kind of go back and forth on, it's not a problem really for Texas Tech, because you got fans that'll buy your tickets. You just plain and simply got a significant advantage as far as alumni numbers are concerned. But I'm kind of wondering, if I'm in those shoes, are they just being smart and doing what they're doing? Because there's some like cowardice factor, I guess people would want to throw at them, but discretion is the better part of valor. And if you could manipulate something to keep a rival fan base out of it, or at least make it more difficult, maybe it's just smart, even though it does seem a little cringe from the other side of the battle line, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the way I would answer it is, if I'm TCU, it clearly bothers the folks at Tech. It bothers me. I mean, it's so much fun to go to Fort Worth when you got half the stadium are friends and family of yours, and I'm like, oh, there's all these Tech fans that I know, right. and it gives it increases your chances of winning those games, in my opinion, right? Yeah. But if I'm TCU, I would continue to do the exact same thing. I would not. Now that I know that it bothers you, and because I just don't think they're worried about like the money part of this and how much, if there's any lost revenue. Again, I go back to it. They'd rather have an empty seat than a Tech fan in there. That's their prerogative. Now, now there's some conference part of this that you have to supply so many seats, and in basketball and football and all those things, you have to supply this or that. But even some of the schools get petty, and they'll put the band way up in the top corner. Now, hey, when you come here, we're doing that same thing to you. We're not, so there's some of that yin and yang that I think goes back and forth. But yeah, this is what makes this stuff fun, though, right? I mean, that's why sports. That's it gets you. It elicits an emotion in you that you didn't think you had on a Friday night about, can I buy a ticket to a road game in Fort Worth or not? And how dare you suggest that you're going to share your revenue and lead the way when we've all said we're doing it, jackass. right? That's not a direct quote, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's pretty close. We're paraphrasing a little bit. And I don't think the visiting band is far enough away from the field where they have them in the upper deck there at the Jones. I think maybe put them on top of the rooftop bar across the freeway. Let's just get them up there and see if anybody can hear a cymbal from that far away. But let us know how you're feeling about it there in the YouTube comments. Like, dislike, something in between. Or are you making plans to visit Fort Worth, Texas, America, whenever the Red Raiders do? Coming up not too far from now. Chris, appreciate the time and a little bonus insight as always. I know your passion for all things anti-purple runs deep and has for a long time.
Yeah, that's where I grew up. I got out of there as quick as I can. I hope my parents aren't listening to this. I still love Fort Worth. It's growing quite a bit. I know tons of people that go to TCU, friends, family, all that stuff. It's a great rival. I probably have changed my perspective over the years as I've gotten older. But yeah, that they're fun to. Again, was I rooting for them in the national title game? No. Did I get a big chuckle every time Georgia scored? Yes, I did. Yes, I did. But that's what makes it fun. And I'm willing to admit, I think that group, whether it's somebody I know or just their fan base in general, they would have been rooting for Georgia to score all the points too. I would imagine. I had a buddy. Remember when we gave up like 80 plus?
Oh, I do. Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, and I had a couple of buddies going, dude, man, we ran out of fireworks.
Yes,
we couldn't. And I'm like, screw you, man. Like I don't. We're not. Let's not talk for a while. So, anyways, but yeah, that's. Yeah, this is what makes it fun, though. And again, the Big 12 needs more of this stuff, man.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope that we get more petty and more shots fired and all that, not less. But yeah, I'll quit rambling. Appreciate the time. Hopefully we kind of educated you a bit on it and kind of give our perspective on kind of the back and forth there.
Thanks for being out there. Get subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. For Chris, I'm Casey, and we hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.